Stacy Lynn, guess who's back? Back again. Because we love you's back. Tell a friend, guess who's back? Guess who's back? Guess. Stacy, you're not singing.
Yeah, you're the singer here.
Oh my goodness.
We've established clear
Welcome
boundaries.
to Because We Love You.
We missed you all.
We're so excited to start season 2, and today we are jumping in with intentional living.
That's right. And we're going to be interacting and doing some fun things on social media this season. So if you're not following us on Instagram or Facebook, do it.
Do it. You don't want to miss out.
So today we're talking about intention, and I have to tell you, so the other day I'm hanging out with Addie, and we just wanted to watch a show on Netflix, and so we started Heartland. Have you watched this before?
I have not, but I've heard about it.
Okay, so this isn't really a spoiler, but I'm going to tell you something that happens. It's within like the first 5 minutes, so this doesn't like ruin the show or anything. But we thought it was just this nice show about horses and family, and we'd enjoy it. Well, in the first few minutes, the mom dies, right?
Stacy, every good movie, the mom or the dad dies. So just get used to it.
Okay.
So
anyway, mom died, right? And Addie, my daughter, my 9-year-old, just starts bawling, right? And she's so sad. And I think, of course she's reflected on death in her life, and she's lost grandparents, great-grandparents at least, and that's been hard, and we've talked about that and gotten through it. But I think it's the first time in her life she kind of realized that, she could lose her parents at any time. Yeah. And so it kind of spiraled into this, she's crying and so upset, and I don't want you to die, and I don't want to die, and I can't live without you. And it was so hard. And kind of as we talked through some of those things, at the end of the conversation, she said, if you could know when you're going to die, would you want to know? Right? And I said, no, I really wouldn't. And she said, I would want to know when you're going to die, because then I would spend all of the time with you and do all of the things I wanted to do with you and make it really special. And it just got me thinking, like, well, we kind of have to live like that all the time, or we should, but we don't. And it got me thinking about intentional living and what that looks like. So
I think that story, it inspires us because we think we have unlimited time. We think we have unlimited resources. We think things are going to keep happening. But I like that. And so when you shared the story and we thought about intention, we thought about it's pretty powerful, isn't it? To live each day intentionally, not just this could happen. And I was reading about intention, and there's a scientist, her name's Lynn Taggart, and she did this whole experiment on intention. It's called the intentional experiment. And this research,
so creative.
This research took grad students from Princeton and MIT, and they all came together, and they would see what the power of intent was on water clarity and or war in an area. And it's very interesting, and you should take a look at some of her experiments. And I didn't get into the depth of that, but it was just saying that our intentionally thinking and planning does change things, and science supports that. So I think that we always like to use science and when we're talking to each other, because it's so fun to us, and we know that even it's all about science. So I thought that was super interesting and made me even more want to talk about intentional living.
And I think we throw this term around, and it kind of sounds like out there and flighty. Like, what does it even mean to say intentional living? So when I say, we need to live more intentionally, what do you think that means?
I think for me, it would be not being impulsive.
I know that's very hard for you.
Yes. I mean, you just not saying yes to every single thing, but really saying what what do I want my goal of today to be? What do I want the thing to happen today? And so for me, I would say that, and I would also say not just merely existing, but like living with a purpose. So when I intentionally live, I want to live with a true purpose in mind and to fulfill it, because I love accomplishment. You know me, I love to accomplish things. So intentional living is to accomplish our purpose.
That's great. It reminds me of the great American poet Tim McGraw, who said, we should live like we're dying, right?
Oh, yeah. You should sing it.
No, I should not.
Live like we are dying. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, see, you're the singer.
Thomas Rhett is going to come get me.
Yeah.
After this.
That'd be great. You could join a tour.
Yeah.
But, on a more serious note, I do think it's not letting life just happen to you. I think it's taking a more active role in what happens to you, what you do, your behavior day in and day out. When I was reading about it, one thing that I found is basically like building your life or living your life centered around your core values. And so those words kept coming up, like core values, purpose was another one. And so it got me thinking about the fact that we don't really talk about that or think about that. I mean, of course, we all have things that are important to us, but I don't think we do a lot of reflecting on, well, in the long run, what are the things that are most important to me? What are my core values and beliefs? What's my purpose? What do I want my legacy to be? We don't spend a lot of time reflecting on that, but I think the way we structure our days and the ways that we behave would change if we thought about that a little more.
It's interesting that you say that. I think actually, we've probably had the most information given to us. We've probably taken more tests than the average person. We've probably been to more classes, but when I'm in the exam room with people and I'm kind of just asking, like, what are you here for? What's your purpose? It is very evident that there has been no guidance in like, what is their purpose? What is their calling? So I think it's even more important because for us, it's kind of like, we've talked about this. And I'll be honest with you, I shared this with you earlier, really recently, probably in the last year, I retook my core values. So I had done this before. But I realized that there was an element of my core values, fun and adventure, that I had been suppressing, and I didn't really identify. It's like it was something I knew. I like that. I like fun and I like adventure, but I didn't really know that this was the thing. This is my purpose. This was the thing that gets me up in the morning and like makes me so happy. And so I was suppressing it when I needed to be feeding it, and I needed to be living intentionally with it and planning things and engaging in things and not saying, oh no, like I'm 37 years old. I shouldn't be trying to have fun every day. Yeah. I shouldn't be going on that adventure. Like I need to calm down. No, that's the thing that makes me alive. And so that's what I want for you. And that's what I want for our friends is to find that thing and to not suppress it any longer.
Yeah. And I think it's hard to figure out maybe what those core values are. And so I think something we've learned along the way is really to monitor your emotions and think about how things make you feel. So, if you're listening and you're like, I know some things that are important to me, but I don't really know what my core values are. I think ask yourself a few questions related to your emotions. Like, what are the things that really make you feel fulfilled? Like when you're doing them, you feel like your best self. These things like set you on fire. They make you feel
joy.
Yes, they make you feel and experience joy. For sure.
Yeah. And then also on the flip side, thinking about the thing that like brings you the most heartache and that devastates you, because then that can also be a core value. Many people like humanity and, like seeing someone hurt, that just breaks your heart. So that it's a core value to help people and whatnot. And also I think it's interesting, sometimes we think of core values as goals. And we had talked about this in previous previous episodes, like, you know,
like habits and
like,
goal setting.
yeah, like getting an A on a test.
Yep.
You know, but that it's very, very different. And research shows that, you know, core values are a state of being. You know, it's like a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And it's an emotional feeling. It's purpose, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's not rigid. Like, I like to think about, like, core value is not rigid. It's flexible, you know? It's like saying, my husband, he loves one of his core values is connecting with people.
Yeah.
Like, hands down, you met him,
Yes.
you know, he loves to connect
It's his
with
thing.
people.
He's a helper.
But he doesn't start every day saying, I'm going to walk into Pastor Jason's office and I'm going to connect with him.
Right.
You know, he goes into Starbucks and he starts talking to the barista.
Yeah.
Or he helps somebody, you know, push his car off and he starts talking to them. So he creates connecting with others as a part of his lifestyle. He doesn't wake up in the morning saying, I'm going to call this person and I'm going to make them connect with me.
Right. Yeah. So not specific. You don't have to wake up and have a specific set of goals that you're going to meet. It sounds like, you know, it makes me think of just being aware, being mindful, maybe. I know people throw that term around a lot, but just being aware of your environment, that if a core value is connection, that during the day you just have your eyes open for people who maybe need a friend or need some help or someone you feel like you could build a relationship with or deepen your relationship with. So yeah. And I also think, you know, we've read a lot of work this week by Finkelstein Fox and colleagues, and I like that one of the things that they were talking about was this idea that, you know, goals are have an ending. They're measurable. They're attainable. They're future focused. Like, I think of a goal like one we talked about last season was I wanted to run a half marathon this year.
You did it.
And I did it. More on that to come later. But you know, that's a goal. Like, that's not a core value, like reading that's measurable. I can say I did it. I can track how close I'm getting to that goal over time. But core values are not like that. Like, a core value may be something like, I want my body to be healthy so I can live as long as possible, right? I want to take care of my body. Like, that could be a core value where it's not that I need to get up and I need to run 3 miles today because I need to be healthy, but it's more so waking up and thinking, I'm going to look for opportunities or set my intention today to care for my body. Yeah. So it's not as attainable. It's not measurable. It's something that every day, it's okay if yesterday, you know, I didn't do a great job, that I get to start fresh and kind of renewed each day thinking about that intention. Like, today, I just want to do my best to take care of my body, or to be a good mom or a good wife, or, you know, just kind of big things like that.
Yeah. I love that. And I mean, I think about, so like once you kind of come up with your core value, right. And you can have many, like,
absolutely.
And they can change. I feel like my core values have changed since adolescence and teenager and college until now. So they can change. But then it kind of makes your intentional living a little bit easier and fun, right?
Yeah.
Because you truly know what are the things during today that I want to make sure that I do. I want to be a good mother. Well, I wasn't wanting to be a good mother when I was 16.
Right.
So that wasn't one of my intentional living. But, you know, I want to connect with my kids. And I think too, like, my mom always used to pray with us on the way to school.
Yeah.
She would drive us to school and she would pray for us and she would pray for our mates and future mates. And I think about, like, that was intentional, because it is so easy now driving my daughter to school. It is so easy just to be like, I don't want to talk about anything. Right. I just want to get to school. I just want to drink, or to play music, or to not just be silent. Yeah. But yet, being intentional, and that has helped me be intentional. It's like, I'm going to use this moment to speak life into my daughter, and that's my intentional living with her. It's like, I'm going to speak life into you in the morning. That's so and I think what we wanted to kind of share with everybody is, like, what are ways that we can live intentionally daily?
Yeah, I think, you know, one important thing is that because we get to start each day new, and that we're just kind of constantly working towards this big thing, is that it just takes a baby step. Like we don't have to have this life that's all mapped out and have every second of every day mapped out, but every day, take the step that's right in front of you that gets you closer or is just at least aligned with those core values. So, in the moment, like you said, not being impulsive and doing the thing, just thinking about what we should do in a moment when making choices about how we're spending our lunch break, for example.
And spending that time in the morning, I think it can be like a daily reflection. Good. Like, purposing the first 10 minutes of the first time that the kids are at school or whatnot, and like just waking up and saying, what are my intentions for today? Yeah. And even if I like this is like sometimes for me personally, exercise can't be a part of my intentions because my day's just too packed. Right. So, but it gives me kind of like a little bit of like room to not do it that day because that wasn't my intention. That wasn't my thing that I could do today. But my thing today is to go to small group. It's to cook dinner for a friend. It's to drop that Starbucks off, whatever it is. Like I want to connect. And then it gives you freedom to maybe not do that every day because intentions can change.
Right. And if just kind of well-being or having a healthy body or a healthy mind is the core value, that doesn't need to look like exercise every day, right? But every day that thing can look different. How are you feeding into the, to your general well-being? I also think just having reminders around of your core values can be super important. I've heard of people kind of finding a picture or a quote or a scripture that they really connect to and posting that somewhere where they're going to look at it every morning or every day. And that can kind of help us reset each day and just be thoughtful moving forward.
That's something I think like I could be better at. Like I don't set reminders of like who we are and where we're going. And so sometimes if you plan to fail, you fail to plan. So we need to plan for that and say, hey, there's going to be days where we don't feel like being intentional, but maybe we just need a reminder how important it is. I like that a lot. So I mean, this is the common thing that we talk about a ton, and it's always about time. And so we found this author that she was so interesting. Her name's Cassie Holmes, and she does a lot of talks on speaking of psychology, which is on the podcast, which we encourage. We listen to a lot of that. So listen to her there. And she also has a book, Happier Hour. And I find the idea that she spends her whole life thinking about time and happiness. Whoa, that's crazy that she spends all her time researching this aspect. Area. And one of the things that she did in her book or kind of illustrated in her book was really cool. One, if you struggle, I think if people struggle with their core value, this might help them with that. But two, the outcomes and what it showed. But basically, when we were reading the study, it took people and they had to take 30 minutes of time and they had to document what did they do during that 30 minutes of time. And then they had to put their emotional response to that. If it made them happy, if it made them sad, if it made them frustrated, whatever. And so all day long, and I think it was actually for a few days, they had to document these timed, I think it was for 2 weeks actually, because she made a point to say like 2 weeks is a good time to see, to get a good overall representation of your life. And what you could see were the things that made them really, really happy and that fulfilled their soul and gave them a positive emotional response, and the things that gave them a negative emotional response. And ironically, the things that gave them the most negative emotional response were commuting, traveling to work, working, things of that nature. And the most positive response was actually connecting with people in relationships. And for me, that makes a lot of sense. But when I thought about that data, I'm like, for a lot of people, it doesn't make as much sense because I'm like, they're introverts. They get more energy being by themselves. But I thought that was staggering that relationships, even if it's not a big group of people, is still, that is where a lot of our enjoyment is happening,
Yeah, absolutely. I think the power of social connection, right, is what it demonstrates there. So that's really key. The other thing that I find interesting about that is thinking about how we can take those times that don't don't feel productive and don't necessarily feel good, and align them with our intentions. So when you think about if you are commuting, although of course the pandemic has taken away the commute for a lot of people, most people working from home now, but let's say you are commuting and that feels like a waste of time. How can we align that time with our core values? What's something we could do in the car on the way to work that feels like it aligns with those goals? So, maybe it's listening to a podcast. Maybe it's calling a friend or a family member. I think you can use that time in a way that feels productive and valuable.
Audiobooks.
Yes,
a lot of people enjoy audiobooks and just listening to, music.
Absolutely. Or even work. If you're not fulfilled with your job right now, but you can't just quit. Most people don't have the luxury to do that, even if it's not, necessarily aligning with your core values. That sounds so great. But maybe when you go into work, you think about, okay, one of my core values is to connect with people. And so I'm going to use my time at work today to build community. So maybe I'm working on this project and I can pull in someone new and hear their perspective and get to know them a little bit. And we can grab lunch together and talk about our ideas and our passions. And so now this time that maybe was not fulfilling and maybe even felt bad becomes something that feels productive and feels aligned with who you want to be and what you want to accomplish.
And the other flip side to that is maybe though you also see something that you can say no to, like that, you didn't have to do that. We have to commute to work. We have to work. We have to do a lot of things. But is there these chunks of time that are completely unfulfilling and they do not push you towards your purpose that you're saying yes to over and over and over again, and that a simple no and a redirecting and to fill that time with more relationships or more time with your kids or devotion with your kids. And that's where I think and she alluded to this, and I just now thought about it, was that like social media is filling a lot of that times, and people aren't always reporting when they were like documenting these 30-minute breaks. They don't report a positive response when they're listening, looking, and watching to social media. So you would think, I really love this. This is fun. This is why I do it so much. But when they document their emotional response, it's negative. And so when you hindsight look at that, you're saying, I'm spending an hour a day doing something that is not producing a positive response. Oh my goodness, what can I do to provoke the emotional response?
Yeah, for sure. Positive. And even, we're not saying like you need to drop all social media because it's bad, but use it in ways that align with your core values. So instead of just scrolling through, watching videos of people that you're not even connected to, look at what the people you love are posting and like it and comment on it and send a direct message to someone, just an encouraging note.
Follow Bob Goff.
Someone who aligns with your core values.
Aligns with your core values, gives you inspiration. John Acuff, we're throwing out all these names. So like,
great people.
How many times do we like, read their stuff and it's like, man, this got me through the day. This was awesome. Your favorite pastor, your favorite minister, a quote, those things are going to fill you up and create those good positive emotional responses. I love that. Good. So do the time tracking if you're truly like, what am I doing with my time and why am I living a life that's not intentional? Find out what makes you happy, what fulfills you.
Yeah, she talked about another exercise in her book, and this one was really powerful for me. She called this the time left exercise.
I like
and
that
this
one.
Sounds depressing at first when you introduce it, but actually I think this is good news. She talks about pick something that you enjoy, something aligned with your core values, something that, is working towards a purpose or makes you feel good, and track how many times you've done it and how many times you have left. And she gives this powerful example of this kind of coffee date she has with her daughter. But it got me thinking about my kids. And, one thing we talk a lot about is summer, because I'm generally working less in the summer because of my job. And so that's, really intentional time speaking into my kids and spending quality time with them. And I was thinking about my oldest, who's about to turn 13, Evan. And when you track that, so I've had 12 summers with him. I have 6 left until he's 18, until he leaves for college, is an adult. And that's wild. Like 2/3 of the summers gone. And
But
that
I'm going
makes
to
me
refuse to believe that,
Okay.
Stacy. I'm going to say when he turns 18, you
Yeah.
are going to love his girlfriends and his friends, and he's going to be
Yes.
like, Mom, please take me on those fun vacations. And I'm probably going to be there.
Absolutely.
And he's going to be like, that Jade, you want to go have fun with her, and
Yes.
we'll go skydiving in Venezuela. And he will always be there for that.
Yes. Okay. I'm
Sorry.
believing that too. I absolutely believe
You
it.
can have
but
all
we know
the summers.
that, yes, let's have all the summers. But we know that things do change once they're adults and, they have their
Okay.
own plans and
Thanks
they do
for-
bring their friends and it's different. So I do want to have the balance there, right? Yes, it's going to keep happening. But only 6 more until he's 18. And so it just got me thinking about how I really need to just be intentional with those times
Summers.
that I have left with him.
Don't say no to the family vacations. I
Yep.
think about that. If you're really kind of saying, what can I say no to? Like, if you only have 6 summers, I have 8 summers left with Isabella. And
Yeah.
so, I want to make it count. And I think it's interesting. Initially, it does make us a little sad. It makes me a
Yeah.
little sad. It's like, that's definitely. But then I get so happy thinking about the things I want to do with them and the
Yeah.
things I want to make count. And I think that research shows us that when we know we have this finite time, that we make it count more than just thinking it's endless,
Yeah, and we savor it. I think about when I watch my parents now as grandparents to my kids and just how they savor the moments with them. And I think part of that is the realization as we get older that time is finite, that it's a limited resource. And so they're just so thoughtful and intentional. I remember this summer we went on vacation with my aunt and her kids, my cousins. And just watching my parents watch us and the way that they would reflect on like, you guys, it's so great to see you together. Look at you having a great time. And so they really savor that family time because they know it's limited.
Yeah. And it definitely makes me think too that, maybe the things that aren't big deals to us are really big deals to people who are older and aging and know their time's finite.
Yeah,
and it makes
that's
me
good.
think of my grandpa who's 91 years old and he
Oh,
comes over every
Grandpa.
Sunday night
Yep.
for Sunday night dinner. And it's really easy to say, I want to do something else
Yeah.
for Sunday night dinner. I want to go somewhere. Let's do this. But even preparing for this is like, that's probably a really special time with him. He knows he doesn't,
absolutely.
how many more family dinners does he have left? Is it a year? Is it 2
Right.
years? Is it, and it could be longer, but, thinking about that from the younger perspective, like they're really enjoying even the little things of life right now. So that's
That's a great helpful
sweet
perspective.
way. Yes. But I think it's important also to know that we make it sound fun, and it is fun whenever you start living in your purpose and
Right.
living intentionally in your calling, because it feeds you. It fuels you for the day and your mood does change. But the reality is it's still hard in some capacity, right?
Yeah, I think we say just figure out your core values and then daily just live up to them.
Yeah.
But honestly, it is hard. And I think some of the things we've even kind of mentioned fairly flippantly today, like if it's a relationship that's not fitting with your core values, maybe you need to leave it. Well, okay, we can say that, but that's really hard. Or not everyone can just quit a job that's not aligned with their core values. Many people are living paycheck to paycheck. They're kind of a slave to that. They need that to kind of function and live, and it's not that easy. So, we have to think about the fact that, we can say set boundaries and quit things that don't align with your values, but that can be hard and sometimes impossible. So maybe it's just kind of also rethinking about how we can use time doing the things that we have to do or that we're really tied to at this point to make them feel more fulfilling.
Yeah. I think that. Sorry, I was thinking of a lot of things while you were talking because I want to make this like a reality for people and for myself. I was even thinking while you were talking, I've got a heart right now for people in chronic pain, and to hear you. So many people can just say, I want to exercise today, and that's like, you just do it. And that's intentional living. And that's awesome. But there are people who have to wake up and say, what's my status today? Am I in pain today? Am I going to be able to move that way today? Am I going to be? And so with that, it's not to say that we give up on that, because if healthy living is your purpose, is the thing that you want to do, then you find a new way to do it. You may not be able to do the typical, let me go run 5 miles, with a friend. But can you go to the Y and get in the pool and move your legs? Can you stretch today? Yeah. Can you walk today, the neighborhood? And maybe it's only a mile. But it's just in everything, that's I'm passionate about that, but not giving up, and even like with our jobs, I see so many people just giving up. I want to say that I say this a lot, prostituting themselves for a paycheck, like literally they think they have to live on that. But what does it look like if that job is not feeding that? What does it look like to actually say no to something else that you're spending however much money on and take the pay cut and to be happy again? Adam Grant posted something this week that I just loved. And it was like, it had this diagram and it said what America teaches us is success. And it was like pay grade and title and pay grade or whatnot. And then he had another diagram of what actually is success. And we have got to start looking at what is actually success. It's vacation time with your family, purpose, and a little sliver of pay grade and title. Yeah. And so when you really put that together, I think all of us, including the people listening and even us, have to just daily kind of remind ourselves, like, it is going to be hard. You may have to say no to something, but don't give up. Make a little sliver different.
Yeah, there are definitely barriers that make this more difficult for some than others. Like you said, I think pain is a great one, and a lot of people are living in chronic pain, illness, loss, people who have just experienced a trauma, people living in poverty. Like, certainly it's a privilege to be able to sit here and talk about
and we acknowledge
our
that.
core values.
I think that's what makes us real. We're not sitting here like saying we get it. I had a patient just yesterday send me this message that said she said her friend mistook something she said, and she was in a deep, deep hole, and she didn't want to talk to anybody, and she never wanted to have friends again because she just hurt them. And I just think, like, well, we know that most of our positivity and our positive emotions come from connecting, and she feels this way, and that's going to be a barrier for her. But she can either live in that barrier or she can say no. And it just makes me think with our kids too. I mean, just to kind of close, like when we were thinking about intention, I think we were like, we want our kids to kind of know earlier than we did, like what fulfills them, not just what makes them happy, not a selfish happy, but almost like what they're called to do. And as parents, I feel like it's pretty easy to kind of put that on our kids sometimes, or maybe not for every parent, but for me, like I want them to do that. I want them to be this. And I kind of, we feed it, but we don't really take a step back and we're like, well, what are your core values? Are you living for my core values, or
that's good.
Are you doing your core values?
Yeah. Like we are trying as parents to get our kids often to live within our core values and not giving them maybe the space to reflect on what their core values are. Of course, we want to lead them in directions that we feel are good and healthy and in service to others. And we should do that. But getting them to reflect on that early, you're right, is just so important. And I think it's important for us, some people may hear this and think, well, that's so selfish for you just to kind of think about what your core values are and aligning your life with that. But actually, I mean, I think this can be a really positive thing for our kids to see us modeling that, how to live a life with intention, how to live a life that's aligned with your core values. I think that could be really powerful.
And core values, if you truly find a core value, they're not necessarily selfish. I mean, core values are humanity. It's caregiving, connecting with people, speaking life into people, open mind, fun, adventure. It usually is not a selfish, a core value usually is not a very selfish thing. Right. It's like, get more Starbucks, go on more, it has to do. So I think that like when we're looking for that, we want them to be fulfilled. It also reminds me of a book that I just recently read by Jeanette McCurdy, and she was Sam Puckett on Sam and Cat, iCarly. So everybody knows that, right? And so she recently wrote a book, I'm Glad My Mother Died. And so I wanted to listen to it because
what a
that's kind of
striking
like,
title.
wow. I recommend the read for everybody because it was, especially if you're a parent, but basically this mom kind of put their core values into, Jeanette, and her whole life, she had to be silent. She was living for her mother, her mother wanted her to act. So she wanted to act because she wanted to make her mother happy. And so are we doing that with our kids? And just being aware of that. We can steer our kids, but always letting them have a voice and saying, because you never know what they should do and be. And it led to a life full of eating disorders and depression and reckless relationships because her core value couldn't be expressed because she was living through her mother's core value. So as parents, it was a wake-up call that we need to be healthy. We need to be healthy with that. We need to help our kids navigate that. We need to model that for them. We need to be aware and say, we do this because this is a part of, our passion and our purpose. And you do this because. So I think this was just a really enlightening, living a life of intention. Are you ready to live it?
I'm ready. I'm ready for intentional living. And, this may feel like a lot, and maybe it feels like a big commitment if you're listening out there. But I think all of us, can think about the thing we can do today is to reflect on, okay, what are our core values, and wake up tomorrow and just have
fresh start.
Yes, a fresh start, and just not let life happen to us, but just, gradually take baby steps to help us move closer and closer to whatever those core values are.
I love it.
We can do it.
Why do we do all this? Because we love you.